As a documentary cinematographer, I spend a lot of time traveling. Actually, if you ignore the first year of COVID, I've spent a minimum of 100 days and some years as many as 200 days per year on the road. And since that means I'm living out of a bag for literally half my life sometimes, any gadgets or accessories that make mobile filmmaking easier is worth its weight in gold to me. So this video isn't about cameras and lenses, it's all about the 12 essential tools that make nomadic film life better. And if you're a filmmaker who likes to get out in the world, this video is for you. So I've always been a bit of a nomad, and way before I ever started in photography or documentary production, I was already moving around a lot. I spent years living out of a backpack and drifting around Asia and the South Pacific. I worked manual labor jobs in Australia and New Zealand. I taught English in South Korea, and I even worked as a deckhand to sail small boats across the Indian Ocean. In a lot of ways, it was a love of travel that got me into this business in the first place, because there aren't really that many jobs out there that will pay you to go around the world, which was sort of the main thing I was looking for in a career. And if you zoom out and look at the last 18 years, I spent 14 of them living overseas, which I realize isn't all that normal, but please believe me when I say I move around a lot. So when Anker reached out and challenged me to put together a list of my favorite travel accessories specifically for filmmakers, it was a pretty natural fit. Battery technology is going crazy these days, and Anker especially is doing some really cool stuff, making my life a lot easier, and I'm going to get into all that in a bit, but thanks to them for supporting this video, because I can talk about this stuff all day. Alright, so this list isn't in any particular order, and not everything here is about cameras specifically, though there is lots of that too. But it does make sense to start semi-chronologically here, so let's kick it off with a few things that helped me out before I've even left the house. And the very first thing I want to know before going to the airport is whether or not I'm going to be hassled by the check-in desk for having overweight bags. Like if you've ever had to frantically repack stuff in the airport line to meet the weight restrictions, you'll know it's pretty awkward, and it is way worse if the stuff in those bags is mission-critical film gear that you can't leave behind. The solution is really easy. It's just a cheap luggage scale that you buy once and never think about again. There's no brand I'm going to recommend here, just as long as it's accurate, it'll do the job. But knowing exactly how heavy my stuff is before I leave removes a bunch of stress from the airport process, so no list of travel accessories would be complete without throwing this in first. For the next thing I want to mention, I should preface it by saying that I am a notoriously unorganized person, and I tend to be really rough on my gear. And that carries over to non-film things like my passport. Now, my current passport isn't looking too bad, but my old passport was actually burned by the Canadian government because they said it was so badly damaged that apparently it wasn't even allowed to exist as an official document anymore. And honestly, that kind of sucked because it was packed with visa stamps from all over the world, and I kind of like to keep old passports as souvenirs to remember all the different experiences I've had. So when I got issued a new one, I knew I couldn't just jam it in my back pocket anymore if I didn't want to go through the same thing again, so I picked up this guy, the Lockbee Pocket Journal. Now, I'm a bit of a stationery nerd, and this thing is advertised as a journal/notebook holder, like for field notebooks or whatever. And as much as I love that stuff on its own, the added bonus is that it also perfectly fits a passport. Now, one thing you're going to notice throughout this video is that I love things that are multi-purpose and solve more than one issue. And while I'm in transit, this thing ticks both boxes. When I'm on the move, I'll put my passport in here to keep it safe and also hold the notebook. And because of the larger size, it has the added benefit of making the whole package harder to lose, which stops me from panicking at 2 a.m. the night before a flight, thinking I lost it for the 50th time. But beyond that, it works like an all-in-one admin holder for traveling. So like I said, there's a notebook in here, which is super helpful, and I guess what it was originally made for, but I can also hold a couple of pens in the front, and that for me is kind of a game changer because I'm so sick of being handed customs forms to fill out on the plane and then not having a pen on hand. Then in this Velcro pocket in the back, I'll keep maybe an extra credit card and my international press card, and probably the baggage tags too. There's nothing crazy high tech going on, but having all this stuff together in one package that I'm not gonna lose is extremely handy, and I'm a sucker for this kind of wax canvas design, so it's a big win all around. Then when I'm on the plane, the next thing I've absolutely got dependent on is an iPad. But that wasn't always true. And I'm not talking about for watching movies here, though I guess it's great at that too. I'm talking about how modern iPads have basically become computer substitutes once you add on the keyboards. Now this is empty, I'm using the iPad as an extra monitor here, but it used to be when they first came out, iPads were pretty limited to just consuming content. But once you add the keyboard and trackpad these days, they're actually good for creating too. And since long haul flights are one of my favorite places to actually get work done, like planning and scripting videos for this channel, the iPad is like a productivity multiplier multiplier because unlike my huge laptop, I can actually use it on a tray table in the economy section. But like I said, this video is about things that serve multiple purposes, so while that's all well and good, I don't think having a tiny word processor is enough to make something a must-have accessory. No, it's what I can also do with it on set that's made it such a critical part of my kit. Because once I actually get to the location, the iPad comes off the keyboard and into a cheap, rugged Amazon case, and then it really starts to shine. For starters, I can use it as a director's monitor by sending it a feed through a Teradek or a Hollyland transmitter, or even with the stock Sony app. If you've never worked with someone before and you want an easy way to put their mind at ease about what you're capturing through the camera, just give them the ability to see what you're seeing. I can then also use it as a poor man's DMX board, and I can run all my lighting controls through the Aperture Sidus Link app, and even though you can do that with your phone too, having a big interface like this makes it so much easier. Any one of those things on their own might make it not as worth it, but since it started to fill a bunch of different roles, I almost never travel without it anymore. Actually, if there's a DIT on set to handle backups, sometimes I won't even bring my laptop, and that's pretty cool. But a solid, multi-purpose, Wi-Fi connected screen is such a great thing to have around as a modern filmmaker who travels, and I feel like the iPad is really coming into its own these days. But as we start to fill up this list with more and more electronic stuff, finding a way to keep it all charged starts to be a challenge. And that's where Anker is stepping in some really interesting ways. And before you skip ahead because you think you already know what these power banks are, hear me out. Because yeah, portable batteries are not new and I've had tons of them over the years. With this new thing though, which is their Prime system, that's all changing. And this is hands down the most versatile and the best battery system I've ever used. And here's why. For starters, it's all about speed. And here I'm talking both about input and output. Like my older batteries can't really charge anything much bigger than a phone, and when it's dead, it takes a couple of hours to get it topped up again. But the Prime batteries can output an insane 250 watts of power, which means it can power a 16-inch MacBook up to like 50% in under half an hour. That's crazy. Like I don't even think that's doable with a wall plug, let alone a portable battery like this. And that's obviously very helpful, but for me, it's almost more interesting how fast this guy recharges, because for my tests, I can get it to 100% power in under 40 minutes, which means when it's dead, it's not useless for the rest of the day because I can get it back up and running in less than the time it takes to eat lunch. And if you have two of them like I do, the second one is here keeping the camera running for this long take, it means the first one is going to be recharged way before the second one is dead, which means essentially endless power. And yes, before I forget, it is definitely airline carry-on friendly because otherwise it wouldn't be much good on this list. But this isn't something I leave in the hotel. It actually comes with me on location, and there's all sorts of stuff I use it for. Like I just brought both of these batteries onto a big interview setup I was doing. This was the first time I'd had one out in the world, and it was crazy how many ways we found to use it. From keeping the director's monitor powered to topping up my laptop on set, I just kept reaching for it because it will literally recharge anything in my kit. I mean, they even made a free app that lets you monitor the battery level remotely. So like if you have it rigged up to a light on the ceiling somewhere where you can't easily get to it and you want to know how much life is left, you can check on your phone. And even the charging system is useful because you can charge it through a USB, yes, but if you have this charging base, it also becomes a fast charger in itself because it has multiple ports on the side. Like I also have two of these batteries and I can just swap them on and off by putting them on this base, which side note is extremely satisfying because of the magnetic connection, but it does mean that I'm always gonna have one that's good to go. Also, at the end of the shoot day, I wanna be able to recharge every single piece of gear I have at once without having to wait and swap things out because I don't have enough ports. So by adding 3 more USB ports, it makes my life a lot easier even without the batteries themselves. So thank you to Anker for supporting the channel and this video, and you're definitely going to be seeing a lot more of these on my set soon. Alright, so now we've taken care of power and we have the ability to work or watch whatever we want on a flight, but there's one more thing when it comes to flights that's more or less non-negotiable for me these days. And by that, I mean headphones. We're pretty spoiled these days for headphone tech, so I won't recommend any brand in particular. I personally have these old Bose QC35s, which have already been replaced by a Mark II version that I'm not gonna buy. I've been really happy with these headphones, don't get me wrong, but much more important than the brand are a couple key features that make headphones useful for more than just watching movies. For flying, that ideally means noise cancellation and really good battery life, and I'd personally prioritize those things over audio quality, but I'm not really an audiophile, so don't take my word word for it. AirPods are also great for travel, but there's a reason I'm singling out over-the-ear style headphones because again, we want as many of these items as possible to fill multiple roles, and AirPods are pretty much useless as a filmmaking tool, for now anyways. No, what I need in filmmaking headphones is the ability to run a hardwired 3.5mm cable into them when I get to the location so I can plug them into the camera and monitor sound. For run and gun situations, I might also carry a small pair of wired headphones so they don't get in the way as much as these big cans, but a solid set of over-ear headphones are amazing for sit-down interviews. If the headphones are Bluetooth only and they can't take a cable, then they're not really helpful at this, so if you prioritize a hard connection, you won't have to leave them in the hotel when it's time to shoot. But on top of all these electronics, as a traveling filmmaker, you're also going to need to bring a ton of camera gear on the flight, and that means bags. Now, there's no one way to do this, but as you probably already know, one of the fundamental rules of travel filmmaking is that you need to carry on all the basic gear you need to get the camera up and running. Check bags go missing all the time, and if you move around enough, it's more of a matter of when, not if, you'll lose a bag. And if the shotgun mic or on-camera monitor are in that bag, the entire shoot is going to shut down while you wait for the airline to figure it out. It's critical that you get at least the camera up and running for basic shooting no matter what happens to the rest of the luggage, and that means hauling a ton of stuff on board with you. At the same time, you can't have so much stuff that the flight crew gives you problems at the gate because that's its own kind of nightmare. There's a fine balance there, and figuring out a system that holds everything you need without creating a scene at check-in is really important. For me, I found the easiest way is with a combination of a large backpack, like this Lotus f-stop that holds all the camera batteries, and then a second shoulder bag that qualifies as a personal item and holds all the lenses and stuff like that. I use all f-stop stuff for this because I'm a big fanboy, but I use the Lotus 4-core, like I said, as my carry-on, which holds the FX9 plus its accessories and batteries, and the FX3 with its top handle. There's enough extra room in there for a book and some headphones, my laptop and an iPad, plus maybe some snacks, but it's still small enough that the airline staff doesn't get weird about it. Then, like I said, the second f-stop ICU pouch holds all the lenses, which then fits into my larger shooting pack, which is the 50-liter f-stop Talopa when I land. Now, apart from the crazy build quality of f-stop stuff, a big reason why I use their bags is because of that modular approach, which makes travel a lot easier. There's lots of other brands out there though, so I'm actually curious how people do this. So if you think you have the perfect carry-on system, tell me about it in the comments and let's compare. And then next, I'll just throw in a quick no-brainer item while we're talking about bags, and that's to just grab a pack of AirTags or whatever the Android alternative is. I put them in all my checked bags, and just knowing where your stuff is going to give you a lot of peace of mind. Even if your bags don't make that connecting flight, at least you know where they are, and then you can see when they're moving again instead of having to be on hold with the airline for hours. Not much else to say about AirTags, and they don't really serve another role in the filmmaking process, but the peace of mind they give is huge. Okay, so now that you've obsessively tracked your bag's progress until they come out the conveyor belt, and you've gotten all your gear to the hotel or wherever you're staying, there's a couple things you'll want to pack to help you get set up. For starters, one of the most important things is to figure out how you're going to keep everything powered up, because the bigger your kit gets, the number of things to power starts to get out of control. Portable batteries like the Ankers help out a lot, but at a certain point you'll have too many things to plug in, drawing too much power, and the worst case scenario is that you have to stay up all night rotating things in and out of a number of limited hotel room outlets. Not only does that create a bunch of opportunities to forget to charge something, it also cuts into your sleep time, which is precious in the dock world.
Let me sleep for the love of God!
The answer's pretty easy. Just bring your own power strip, and ideally a fast charger like the Anker base. For the main bar, just one large strip with like 8 to 10 outlets will do, ideally with built-in USB ports. It means you should be able to plug in everything at once, like just a set it and forget it scenario before you pass out for the night. There's no brand of power strip here to recommend, just as long as it has plenty of outlets, a surge protector to stop it from getting fried on weird power grids, and hopefully one that's well built enough to take a beating. I use this one made for contractors personally, but it doesn't really matter. Throw in an international power adapter and you're good to go anywhere in the world. And on a related note, the number of times I've found myself cursing as I try to do all this recharging in the dark is more than I want to admit. Like, I've literally spent months on locations where we were staying in tents or in remote camps and pulling power from generators, which is cool, but it also means your charging station might be in the middle of the forest and not in a well-lit hotel room or office. I'm not exaggerating when I say I've had to do this hundreds of times, and so the next essential tool for me is a headlamp. Mine's packed away with some other tools right now, so I won't hold it up, but even if you're not in a remote spot like I've been, even on a soundstage or indoor interview location, there are tons of times when you're going to be fiddling around with gear in the dark where a headlamp is going to be your best friend. Mine lives permanently with my tools, and any brand will do here as long as it's reliable. I personally like to pick a model that also has a red light so you can use it without blinding everyone at night and ruining your vision, but that's up to you. When it comes to USB USB versus battery powered, it sort of depends. USB ones are great if you're not far from power or if you have a bunch of Anker primes sitting around, and it's great to not have to constantly buy new batteries and create a ton of waste. If on the other hand the job is more remote though, then I definitely go with a battery powered option because you really don't want to lose the ability to use your light in the jungle just because you can't find an outlet. And lastly, when it comes to getting yourself set up, one of the more nerdy things in my kit is this cable management pouch, but it really is incredibly nice to have around. There are just so many cables to keep track of these days, and there's nothing quite as awful to deal with as a crazy tangle of USB wires while you try to find the one you need. Like my laptop, my timecode boxes and audio recorders, my drone, the Ronin. You get the point. They're all using different USB cables. And having one central place to put them all while stopping them from twisting up into a crazy nest of snakes is just really nice. And as we get close to the end here is possibly one of the dorkiest things I own, but also one of the things I love breaking out the most, and that's my trusty collapsible stool. It's pretty simple. It's just this little telescoping disc thing that you can adjust to whatever height you need and then sit on it. It can hold up to 260 pounds, so I also use mine as a stepladder as well, but I don't think I can publicly suggest that for liability reasons. It's kind of incredible how useful an extra stool is in a remote location, from whipping out a mobile interview seat or giving you a spot to sit while you manage backups. And when you pull this out and hand it to a tired director, you'll end up looking like a superstar. It packs down really small, it's really tough to break, and when you need it most, you'll be very happy it's around. Plus, unlike most camera gear, it's relatively inexpensive and won't need to be upgraded every few years. Totally nerdy, but I love it. And then last but not least, don't forget a towel. Even when I know I'm gonna be staying in hotels, I still bring a towel with me because you never know when you're gonna get caught out. There's no specific recommendation other than the fact that a lightweight, quick drying towel like this one is probably a lot better than a huge bulky beach towel, but I'll leave that to you. If you're gonna be away for a long period of time, bring a towel. So there we go, 12 essential travel accessories for filmmakers who move around a lot. If you have any special tricks or tools that I didn't mention, let me know in the comments because I love talking about this kind of stuff. Thanks again to Anker for making this video happen. There's a link to the Prime batteries in the description below. And until next time, happy travels. See ya.